Hello everyone, this is Denise Saladay. Welcome to Clarity 16.13 Supportability Training. I will be covering the topic Administration Blueprints. So what is new in Blueprints? First, we've added properties for subobjects, and the status report, objectives, and custom master objects will have some new configurations that are available for their subobjects. We've extended the Create From template to include custom master objects, objectives, and agreements. And last, help text is now available in Properties and Create From template for master objects. Why is this important? Customers requested the capability to drill down to a Properties page for subobjects like we support today for master objects. And whenever we have the properties enabled for subobjects, users will actually have a place to drill down to in their notification links in Modern back to these subobjects. We also wanted to provide more configurations options for subobjects. And based on customer demand, we extended the Create From template to support additional master objects than what we support today. And last, customers have asked us for a mechanism to display help text on Properties and Create From template screens. Next, let's take a look at Properties that is available now for subobjects. Properties is available now for both out-of-the-box and custom subobject modules. In the Master Object Blueprint, we created a new toggle called Enable Properties Navigation, and you can set that differently for each subobject. By default, all subobjects, including out-of-the-box and custom, will have that toggle turned off. The subobjects that have this capability are Level 2 subobjects, and out of the box they're tasks, staff, risk issues and changes, baselines, and the status report, but not the status module. We also will support custom subobjects of the abstract investment object, projects, ideas, and custom subobjects as well. Subobjects of custom master objects, and in the objectives object, key results subobjects, as well as their custom subobjects. And to enable any of these, you just toggle it on and then you'll publish your blueprint. It is important to note that if customers want links for their notifications, they have to enable properties for that navigation to be enabled. Next, now that we know how to enable the properties for subobject, we'll take a look at how administrators can configure the layout screen for subobjects. And we're taking a look here at an example of a project blueprint, and we're going to use the task module as an example. To configure the properties layout, you would highlight the task subobject in the blueprint and click the Edit Modules Detail button. And when you do that, you'll get the screen here that will have Properties, Modules, and the Create. And the first tab that you'll be navigated to is Properties. And on that layout, similar to how you would for Master Objects Properties, you will just drag and drop the attributes that you want to show in your subobject property screen. And only those attributes on the subobject are available in the layout. By default in the layout, we've created one summary section with the same attributes that are shown by default in the Details flyout. So next, if you click on the Modules tab, this is where you would configure what modules you want to appear in the Details flyout for your subobject. But the same configurations and the same modules will display in your Properties screen too for that subobject. And to enable or disable these modules, you can just drag and drop or click on the X near the module. On the subobject, if you enable the properties navigation, but you do not have the properties available to display in your modules tab, what will happen is the user will be navigated to the first configured module for the subobject instead of properties, since you haven't enabled it. And whenever you're finished configuring these, you just would click Publish when done to publish your changes. Now we will view the subobject properties page. So once you've enabled the properties navigation toggle for specific subobjects, and tasks we'll use as our example, you will then see a drillable link for tasks, which is usually the name for most subobjects. There are a couple of exceptions though, but you'll click on the name Database Development of your task, and then you'll be navigated to the properties for that task. Note that the same modules that are configured in the project blueprint for e-commerce, for tasks, they have the same modules that are displayed in the details flyout as are showing in the properties screen, which is to-dos, assignments, links, and conversations. There will not be a properties link available in the timeline, calendar, or board views for your subobject. It will only be available in the grid. And properties is shareable via URL link that users can copy and paste. And if properties is not enabled, then instead the user will be navigated to the subobject grid. In this case, it would be the task grid. On the subobject properties screen, we are enforcing any business roles in properties to hide subobject modules or control attribute behavior. And if the administrator did not enable the properties navigation toggle and it's disabled in the project's blueprint, then there would not be a drillable link on the task name to navigate to properties. I wanted to just show you an example of viewing properties for the staff subobject, but essentially it works the same way as other subobjects with two small exceptions. The first exception is that you will be drilling to properties using the attribute resource, and it's not name. The second thing that's rather unique about staff is that there's a double-click action already to replace the staff resource. So in order to access the staff properties, you'll use a single click. And once you do that on the resource, you will then see the staff properties if they're enabled. And along with regular edits that are supported in all of our property screens, here in the staff module, users can edit the resource and replace that with a different resource in properties. And if the administrator has not enabled the properties navigation toggle for the staff subobject, then users will not have the single click option to navigate to properties, but they'll still have their double click action to replace their resource. Now, we'll view investment subobject properties in the Hierarchies workspace. On the Investments tab in this workspace, once you navigate underneath your investment, you will actually can have subobject modules that are enabled for properties too. But controlling the properties configuration is not done for inside of the Hierarchies blueprint. It's done inside of the Investments blueprint for that particular subobject. We had already enabled the subobject properties in e-commerce portal project for tasks, and you can see an example of this within the Hierarchies workspace. If you click on the on the database development task, you'll be navigated to that task's property screen. In this workspace, you can enable properties for tasks, staff, risks, issues, and changes, status reports, and any supported custom Level 2 subobjects. Next, we'll take a look at some new configurations that are available for status report subobjects. The configurations that we're going to look at next here apply to the old status report subobject, which is only available in the projects object. We have the Enable Module Details button that is now available for this subobject, and if you click that, you'll have access to the Properties page where you can configure what attributes you want to display in Properties for the subobject. You also have the modules where you can configure what modules you want to appear in both the Properties and your Details flyout for the subobject, and you also can configure the Create modal for this subobject. We also added 3 new toggles for the subobject: the Enable Properties Navigation, the Enable Quick Create, and enable the Create dialog to go along with that. And the behavior will be the same as it is for other subobjects. And once you enable those new toggles in your project blueprint, it'll look something like this. You'll have the new status report button that you can click to enter data with the new status report create modal. You could turn the quick create plus on or off, and right now it's enabled. And lastly, you can see that I enabled the properties for the status report. So you click on the name and you'll navigate to the properties which are configured for this subobject. And again, this will work the same way that it does today for other subobjects. Next, we'll take a look at some configuration that is now available for Objectives subobjects. In your Objectives Master Object Blueprint, you will now have some configurations for its subobjects. Similar to what we added to the old Status Report module, you'll have an Edit Module Details button where you can configure properties, any modules that you want to display for the subobject, and you'll have a Create dialog that you can configure as well. And we also have the 3 toggles that are available for any subobjects here, including the key results, which is out of the box, and any custom subobjects for level 2 only that will also have these capabilities. And the toggles are Enable Properties Navigation, Enable Quick Create, and Enable Create Dialog. When we view the Key Results subobject under Objectives, it'll look something like this. You'll have the new Key Results button that you'll click to get a modal to create instances for the subobject, and your plus Quick Create could be turned off or on, and it's enabled right now. And also I enabled the Properties navigation, and if you click on the name of the key results, you'll drill down to its properties screen. And these will all work the same as they do for other subobject modules. Next, I'll discuss the configurations that are available for subobjects on custom master objects. The same new subobject configurations that we've been looking at for the status report module and objectives is also available for custom master objects subobjects. There will be an Edit Module Details button where you can configure a property screen, the modules that you want to display in the Details flyout or in the property screen, and a Create modal that you can configure for users. These capabilities will be available for all Level 2 subobjects on custom master objects. And when you're done making changes for subobjects, you can, in the custom master object blueprint, you'll just publish to save your changes. In the example that we'll be looking at for custom master object subobjects, vendor is a custom master object and vendor contracts is a child of that master object, and vendor discounts is a grandchild for that master object. And in the blueprint for vendors, I've enabled all of the capabilities for the new vendor contracts. So users, whenever they click that, they'll get the create modal to add new vendor contracts. And the quick create plus buttons also enabled to create instances for that subobject. And the properties is enabled, so if you click on ACG vendor contract, you will navigate to its property screen. And again, these will all work the same way as they do for other subobjects. Next, we'll take a look at how we expanded the create from template capability in the blueprint for some other objects. In order for an object to have the create from template capability, it needs to have two things. First, it has to be API enabled so that it would even be accessible in Modern. And secondly, you have to have the template enabled attribute toggle turned on so that you can actually create templates for it. Custom master objects don't always have those turned on. But now, since we are supporting create from template for custom master objects, you'll want to go into Classic Studio and make sure that those items are toggled on if you want this capability. Now, immediately after you check the template enabled on a custom master object, a new global security right will be created with the custom master object name and create from template right. And you can assign that to users whom you wish to give those rights to. We also create two new attributes on the object, template and originating template. The slide that I'm presenting here is for the custom master object vendor, and it shows you those attributes in Classic Studio, and in the column panel those two attributes show up for the master object once it's been enabled. Along with expanding custom master objects to have the create from template capability, we've also expanded it to include the objective and the agreement objects. Both of those objects already had the API enabled attribute checked. But once a customer upgrades, we are automatically checking the template enabled for both the objective and the agreement objects. And because we're doing that, they will have the two new attributes, template and the originating template. They'll also be created. The originating template attribute is a read-only attribute. And what we also did in expanding the create from template configuration is we made this capability a little more generic so that we can expand it in the future if we decide to do so. In Blueprints, we now have the capability where you can create always true required attribute business roles for custom master objects and for the objective objects, but we don't have that support for the agreement object. Like other objects that have this support today, those always true required business roles will be enforced in the create dialog, and they're not enforced during the quick create plus. To create one of these business roles, you want to make sure that under conditions that you toggle the always true to be on, and under actions you'll select required attributes and you'll select your attribute that you want to be required. The attributes that will be available in your selection to be required will only be those attributes that are on the target object in your business role. To configure the Create from Template dialog in your blueprint, you just navigate onto the Create from Template tab. And you'll just drag and drop attributes from the left pane onto your Create layout. Any attributes that are required either in Classic Studio or which have an Always True Business role in the parent blueprint will have an asterisk next to them in the list here. If the administrator doesn't add one of the required attributes into the Create layout and there are no defaults set up for that attribute, either in Studio or auto numbering, what will happen is during runtime, when the user tries to create an instance of this object, the attribute that's missing will be automatically appended at the bottom of the Create dialog. TSV attributes, attachment, and rich text attributes are not supported in the Create dialog. And while we expanded the Create from Template capability to include custom master objects, objective, and the agreement objects, this is really the same behavior that's consistent with other master objects that we've delivered in prior releases. The next thing that we need to do is we need to navigate into the object and either designate an existing instance as a template, or we want to create a new instance that we want to become our template for our master object. And you can set that attribute either in Classic or Modern, and you would just check the template attribute for custom master objects. And for the objective and agreement object, you would do that in Modern. And the last thing that I want to mention is if a user unchecks a template attribute after it's already been used for creation, that instance and its originating template value will display the name of the template used to create the instance, even though that instance is no longer a template. Now that we have our configurations done, we will look at how the user would create an instance from template. And we'll use the example that we've been looking at for vendor, which is a custom master object. So in order to create an instance from template, you just need to click the New from Template button. And once you do that, you'll receive a pop-up with a Select a Template grid. And in there it will show you all the instances that are available to select as a template to use in creating your new instance. Now we made a generic change in the Select a Template grid where we made the name no longer be linkable, and that will apply to all objects that have this capability. So once a user selects a template to use, they'll click the Next button, and then what they'll see is the Create dialog that the administrator configured. Now if you recall, for vendors in the blueprint, the location attribute was not in the layout, and I created an Always True Business role for that attribute, and it's required. So that location attribute automatically was appended to the end of this Create dialog box. And once the user enters all required values for this object, the Create button will then become blue and be enabled for users to click on to actually create their instance. There are some things that we should consider whenever we're creating new instances on custom master objects using the New from Template capability. First, Level 2 and Level 3 subobject instances will also be copied, but the user needs to have the create or copy access right for those subobjects. And that operation will exclude action items, conversations, and audit data. For the objective object, the same thing would apply. Users will need to have the create or copy access right for Level 2 and Level 3 subobject instances, and it also excludes action items, conversations, and audit data. For agreements, both the canvas and checklists will be copied from template, and that would be both predecessors and successors. And it will exclude conversations and audit data. Next, we'll take a look at how to create and configure help text for users in the blueprint for Create and Edit. Administrators can configure help text in blueprints for users to see in all supported blueprint-enabled master objects which have either the Create from template and or properties available. I'm currently showing an example for the project object on the properties layout in the blueprint. The new attribute that's available is called help text, and you can see it bordered by the red in the left pane. So you could drag and drop help text more than once in your blueprint, as many times as you need in your layout, and you can reuse the control. And you can see that I have two examples of it. I have one near the stage attribute, and I have another instance of it right at the beginning of the Lean Canvas section on the property screen. It's a large string rich text attribute that supports things like links, tables, images, and the types of images that it supports are JPEG, PNG, GIF, BMP, WebP, and TIFF. It is important to note, though, that the only place that the text for this attribute can be updated is in the blueprint. The user will not be able to update it. And just like other attributes that you drag into your layout, it can be resized or moved. This attribute will appear for master objects in the blueprint for the properties layout screen, which I'm showing here, and the Create from template layout. To add a link, you would just click on the link icon and you'll get a little pop-up where you can type the link. If you want to add a table, there's a little table icon as well. And for an image, you have two options here. If you click on the picture, you can upload an image directly from your desktop. But if you click on the little arrow next to the picture icon, then you can insert an image from somewhere else on the web page via a URL. This is what users will see whenever they're viewing the help text that the administrator configured. And this is the digital project example that I configured previously. You can see that near the stage attribute, there's my first control for help text, and then under the Lean Canvas section, I have the second one displaying. And as I stated earlier, this capability is also available for Create from template, and I wanted to show you an example of that as well. You can see in the new project Create modal here on the bottom that I've also added the attribute there, and you can see what it looks like. In view mode, users can only read this data. They can't make any updates to those attributes, and it'll be displayed in the format, location, and size that the administrator configured in the blueprint. Next, I'll demonstrate how to configure and view properties on subobjects. Then, I'll demonstrate the new configurations that are available for subobjects under Custom Master Objects, Status Reports, and Objectives. After that, we'll explore the extended capability, Create from Template, for Custom Master Objects, Objectives, and Agreements. And the last thing that I'll demonstrate is how to configure and view help text for master objects and properties in the Create from Template screens. I will demonstrate how to configure a properties page for subobjects. You will do that in Modern under Administration in the Blueprints. We will modify our project blueprint's task module for properties. We'll edit the blueprint, then we'll navigate to the task subobject module, and you'll notice that there's a new toggle here called Enable Properties Navigation, and by default it's toggled off, and properties will be toggled off for all supported subobjects. So the first thing we need to do is toggle that on. Then we will click Edit Module Details and configure the layout for task properties. The left pane only includes those attributes on the task subobject. And you select them into your layout by just dragging and dropping them. I just added a charge code. After we've configured the properties layout for tasks, let's go configure the modules. You can see that properties is already enabled here, and you can disable it easy by just clicking the X or dragging and dropping it back over into the left pane. So let's add conversations to the task modules. And what's important to note is whatever modules you have configured here for the subobject will apply to both the properties page for tasks and the details flyout for tasks, since they share the same configuration. In order for notification links to work for the task subobject, you have to have properties configured. Next, you want to publish your blueprint changes. If an administrator enabled the properties navigation for tasks, but they did not enable the properties module for tasks, what would happen for users is whenever they clicked on the link, they wouldn't navigate to properties. Since that module's not enabled, they would be navigated to the first module that was configured in this blueprint for tasks. This capability for properties is available for Level 2 subobjects. The out-of-the-box subobjects include tasks, staff, risks, issues, and changes, baselines, and the old status report object. Custom subobjects that are supported at Level 2 are the abstract subobject for investments, projects, ideas, and custom investment types, custom master objects. And for the objective object, the key results subobject that's out of the box is supported, as well as any custom Level 2 subobjects against the objective object. Now we review properties for a project e-commerce who is using that blueprint that I just configured. Notice that the tasks now have a link that you can drill down on since we enabled it. And if you select database development, you'll be able to see your task properties screen that we configured, and it has the charge code attribute that we had added. And the modules that we configured for tasks are to-dos, assignments, links, and conversations. If we navigate back to the task and look at the details flyout, you'll see that those are the same modules: to-dos, assignment, links, and conversations. Note that there is no link to properties in the timeline or in the board view or the calendar view. Properties is shareable via a URL link that users can copy and paste. And if I just copy and paste my link to properties for tasks, I'm navigated to the properties for my database development task. If you share your properties subobject link with someone and you disable it after that, what'll happen is once they navigate to it after it's been disabled, that they'll be navigated to the sub-object grid. In this example, it would be the task grid. And remember that any business rules that you have for your sub-object defined in your blueprint will be honored in properties just like they are for master objects today. For this same project, I had previously enabled properties for staff, and there's just a couple things I want to show you here. First, the properties link is based on the resource attribute and not the name label. And next, a single click will take you to properties, but the double click here on Valerie's name is going to allow you to replace your resource. So if we navigate back to properties, what you can also do here is you can replace your resource in the properties page as well. This task properties is also available in the hierarchies for that investment. So under the investment tab, if I click the project e-commerce portal again, you can see that I also have the properties link here and can navigate to task properties. I will now demonstrate new configurations that are available for the old status report sub-object that is available on projects. So under Modern Administration, we'll navigate to Blueprints, and we'll look at a project blueprint in edit mode and review the modules that are available in the status report sub-object. There is a new toggle called Enable Properties Navigation that will allow you to have a properties page for the sub-object, and we'll just toggle that on. And you have the Quick Create, which you can enable or disable. That's the plus when you're adding. That's already enabled by default. And the Quick Create dialog, we'll toggle that on. That will allow you to configure a create modal for users. And if we click on the new Edit Modules details for this sub-object, we land on the Properties tab. And in Properties, you can configure whatever attributes you want to appear here for your users and properties. Properties is already displaying. Here is the module, and this is the Create experience for users. I will also add the manager here. And once you're done with all of the configurations for your sub-object, you click Publish. Next, we'll view our new configurations for the status report sub-object under the e-commerce portal project. So if we navigate to the status report sub-object, you'll see here that you have a link for properties, and if you click on it, you'll see that it's the properties that I configured that includes the investment manager. Also, you'll notice there's a new status report button. And it also includes my new investment manager field if I choose to populate it. You click Create, and your new instance is created. We have added some new sub-object configurations for the objective object. You can view these configurations in the Modern UX under Administration for an objective blueprint. So you'll need to edit your blueprint, and under Modules, you'll see the sub-objects listed for objective. If you had any custom level 2 sub-objects under objective, they would appear here, and these configurations would also apply to them as well. So we'll focus on the key results sub-object, which is out of the box. There's a new Enable Properties navigation that will allow users to have a properties screen for edit when updating key results, and we'll just toggle that on. The Quick Create is the plus in the grid, which is already enabled by default, and we'll enable the new Create dialog. So users will have a Create dialog experience. Further configurations we can make are under the Edit Modules Details button. On the Properties tab is where you will configure your Properties page for users for key results. Just drag and drop attributes from the left pane into the layout, and only those attributes that exist on the subobject can be put in the layout. You could configure your modules here and add or remove some of them, and whatever configuration you have here would also apply to the details flyout along with your properties page, because they share this configuration here. This is the Create dialog that you can configure for users when they're adding new key results. Just add a field here. And when you're finished with your edits and your configurations, you just click Publish. If we navigate to the Objective workspace, we can view these configurations. I have already navigated to the Key Results subobject, and you'll notice that all of the instances here now have a link. So if you click on it, you'll see that you're navigated to our new Properties page, which has the Start attributes that I just added to it. We have to-dos, actual value, and target value configured as subobjects for key results. So if we navigate back, you can see that if we open up the Details panel, we have the same subobjects configured for key results: to-dos, actual value, target value. We have a new key result button, which will bring up our Create modal that we configured in admin. And it has the Start attributes that we configured to it. And then the user just needs to populate that, click Create, and their row will get added. I will now demonstrate some configurations that are available for subobjects on custom master objects. So in Modern, if you navigate to Administration, Blueprints, and you select a blueprint, I'm going to use an example for Vendors, which is a custom master object. It has a child subobject called Vendor Contracts, and it also has a grandchild object underneath the vendor contracts called Vendor Discounts. If we open up the vendor's blueprint and go into edit mode, under modules, you can see that the vendor subobject is here. We highlight that. You'll notice that there's a new toggle available for this level 2 subobject called Enable Properties Navigation. By default, it's disabled, and we'll enable it. Enable Quick Create is the plus in the grid, which was already enabled by default. And we have another new toggle, Enable Create dialog, which will allow administrators to configure a Create dialog for users. So I'll enable that as well. Under the Edit Module Details button, which is new too, the first tab is the Properties tab. And in here you can configure your properties layout for users. And I'm just going to add the description attribute. Just drag and drop the attributes in, and only those attributes that are on the subobject are available in the layout. Under Modules, this is the grandchild object. For this master object, Vendor Discounts, I'm going to enable that as well. And these configurations, as far as the new toggle and the edit module details, they only apply to level 2 sub-objects, not level 3 or lower. So then we'll navigate to the create, and we're going to add the description here as well to the create layout. And when you're finished with the configurations for the vendor contract sub-object, you would just click Publish to publish your blueprint changes. We can view these configurations in the Custom Master Object workspace, and I clicked on the Vendors tile. So if I click on a vendor here, and Vendor Contracts, which is the sub-object that we configured, notice now that it has a Properties page link, and if you click on it, it'll bring up the Properties page, which will have the description attribute that I just configured to display. Notice that under Properties, I also had configured the Vendor Discounts grandchild sub-object, and it's appearing as well here. So if we navigate back and we open up the Details flyout, you can see that the Vendor Discounts grandchild sub-object also is showing here because they share the same configuration in the blueprint. So I'll close that. And I have a new Vendor Contracts Create modal, which is a dialog customers can use to create data. Notice it also has the new description attribute that I had added. And if you click Create, the instance will be created. We extended the Create from Template capability to support 3 new Clarity objects: Objective, Agreement, and Custom Master objects. We also made some internal changes to make this capability more generic. We're going to look at a Custom Master object today called Vendors, and we'll review the object properties right now in Classic Studio Objects. The attribute Template Enabled has to be checked, and once you check it, you can't uncheck it. But in order to use the Create from Template, you have to have this checked. Additionally, all objects to consume the Create from Template capability have to be API enabled. For Custom Master objects, there's a couple of things that we create internally once this attribute Template Enabled is checked. First, we create a new Create from Template security right so that you can assign this to users. We also create 2 new attributes for the object. The first one is Template, which is a Boolean, and this is what will designate an instance on whether it's a template or not. And this is editable by users. And the second attribute is Originating Template, which is read-only and is mainly used to store the value of what template you use to create your instance with. While this new capability was extended to Agreement and the Objective object is already, those 2 objects were already API enabled. We already checked the Template Enabled flag for both of those objects, and the 2 new attributes, Template and Originated Template, have already been created for those objects. I'm going to use an object called Vendors, which is a Custom Master object, to demonstrate this extended capability. The first step is to set up the configuration in Modern under Administration Blueprints. And I'm going to navigate into my Vendors blueprint. And I'll go into Edit mode for my blueprint, and you'll navigate to the Create from Template tab. And this is where you configure your Create experience. and you just drag and drop attributes from the left pane to the right pane. And I'm just going to add a description here. Any attributes that are business role required or studio required will display with an asterisk. And if the administrator does not configure those attributes onto the layout and they don't have a default set up in Studio, or if they don't have auto numbering set up, then they'll automatically be appended to the bottom of the modal when the user is trying to create an instance from template. I wanted to demonstrate that behavior, so I created a new business role against the vendor's master object, the blueprint that we're in now, and I wanted location to be always required. So if you're creating an always true business role, which is enforced in the create modal, not during the plus quick create in the grid, but here in the modal it's enforced, you make sure that you enable the always true toggle here. And then under actions, you'll select required attributes and any attributes that you want to be required. In this case, I selected location. And once you're done creating your always true business roles, you'll just click Save. And you want to make sure that your business role is enabled. And when you're done configuring any business roles that you want to apply to your modal and your configurations from your Create from Template layout, you just click Publish to publish your blueprint changes. So if we navigate to our Custom Master Object workspace and we look at the Vendors object, you can see that the two new attributes that were added, Template and Originating Template, are here in Modern as well as they were in Classic. To make an instance a template, you really have a couple of choices. You can either check the templates attribute here for any instances you want to become a template, or you can create a new instance and then check the attribute to make sure that it's set as a template. As you can see, I already have one created here called Vendor Template, and I used it to create this vendor, Starlight Supplies, and you can tell from its originating template that I used that template to create it. If you uncheck an instance that was already used as template like I did here, the originating template value will still be retained for it because this is the record that I used to create it, even once it's no longer a template. But I'm just going to check that to continue with my demo here. You may be wondering why that required fields pop-up is appearing. It's because of the business role that I created for location. I made it be always true, and it's a required attribute, and I don't have it populated for this record. So anytime I make updates, it's going to check and fire off that pop-up telling me that I need to populate that value. So now let's simply create an instance new from template. You just click the new from template button, and you can see the template here that I have appearing. I only have one. Now in prior releases, this attribute name value here used to be linkable, and it no longer is, so we made that change as well. But you'll select your template, and once you select your instance you want to use for your template, you just click Next. In the Create from Template blueprint, the administrator had configured these three values, and notice that location was required in my business role, and administrator didn't configure it to this modal, but it was automatically appended to the bottom of this. And notice too that these required attributes, as long as they're not populated, this create button is going to stay disabled. So let's populate this here. We'll enter a location. And as soon as I enter a value, the create is enabled, and you would just click create to create your instance. And you're navigated here into properties. Remember that TSV, rich text, and attachment attributes are not supported in any of our create from template modals. There is now a help text attribute available for master objects for use in properties and create from template objects. We'll navigate in Modern to Administration Blueprints, and we'll take a look at an example in a project blueprint. And we'll need to put our blueprint in edit mode. As soon as it becomes in edit mode, we can edit the layout, and you can see that I already have used this help text. I used an instance of it here next to the objective attribute under the project summary section, and I have another example here under Lean Canvas. So you can use this attribute as many times as you want within one layout. It's a large string rich text control, which you can also add links, tables, and images. The only place that these controls can be updated, the text here, is in the blueprint itself. They become read-only for users. And they're available for all blueprint-enabled master objects with either the create from template or the properties layout configuration. So let's add another instance of this attribute into my properties. This is the text right here, help text, and you would just drag and drop it over here into your layout. And I added some text here for it, applicable to Agile projects only, since it's in the Agile summary section. You can see all the various rich text controls that you would expect that will be available. But to add a link, you would just click the link icon here, and you would type in your link here and click check. And it'll be added to your control. To add a table, you could click on here to add a table with so many rows and columns. You could display an image here from a URL, or you have the capability, when you click on this, you can upload it from your desktop. I'm going to just keep it simple, and I'll bold it and make it red. And once you're done adding as many of these as you want, you would just click Publish. Now you could also add this type of control in the Create from Template dialog. As you can see, I already have one here for the retail banking to give some notes about this objective attribute here. You could easily drag and drop another one, as many as you want here. You can see that I have the scroll bar and I just added it here. I'm going to remove it because I don't want to keep it. And once you're done, you click Publish. To view my help text, I can go into a project that's using the blueprint that I configured and navigate into Properties. And you can see this is the one that I had created initially. Here's one that I added here, which has a link in it to go to Google Drive for documents. And the one that I just added in the Agile summary section is this one here, which I made red bold. As you can see, none of these attributes are updatable by me. I can only click on this link here. The image types that are supported in this control are JPEG, PNG, GIF, BMP, WebP, and TIFF. So let's navigate to the Create From template to look at the help text that I added there earlier. Here you can see that it's showing here next to the objective, and it's giving some direction on this attribute, and the user cannot update it here either. So as soon as they populate the required attributes, you click Create and create your instance. And this concludes the supportability training for administration blueprint topic. Thank you.